going on in town. Okay, one's going to be at Fuller Park, right? And that's going to be a family ordeal going on over there starting. Okay, so we'll be there at 1. The church will be there at 1. And then some of us will be leaving right after that or not even going to that and heading over to the Y. The Y starts at 4, and there will be set up there as well. So that's 2 things going on Saturday. One of the things that we need for both, I know for the YMCA is candy, right? We've got some out there already in a bucket. Some people are involved with that already. How many bags do we want to have together? So roughly 40 bags is, somebody know anything about candy? Candy money? Candy? All right, 10, 15, 16, okay. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's six kids up there, and you're 7. Okay, so 7. So Tara and I'll do $100 for the number of kids. Well, you 8, so we'll do 100. No, not per kid, all together. We'll represent this Keys kids, all right? So these kids can each have a bag of candy apiece, which gets you something from the B kids if you're part of that, okay? So Tara is watching home. We just got home. That's why she's not here. She's unpacking, getting groceries, doing mom's, getting ready for school, getting ready for work, all that crazy stuff that goes along with just getting back into town. But we're glad to be here. So we're going to do, Tara, if you're watching, just send $100 online, and we'll take care of these kids, but we need everybody else to contribute as well. And we want to do it on behalf of these kids because we love our kids. We love being involved with the community. We love our B Kids ministers. People that are involved matter, right? And our kids matter, and doing these events matter. So I think a pastor should lead in every aspect of the church community: teaching, praying, loving, giving, attending service. That's why we all threw our clothes on and came here. We want to be leaders in that aspect. So I encourage y'all to give or contribute to the candy bucket sometime between now and Saturday. So come up here soon or get a hold of Miss Cynthia. Okay, we'll make sure that's good to go there. And we're gonna get ready to get started. Malachi, you're gonna lead us. Is that right? You and your choir behind you. Are y'all ready to sing for us? All right, we're gonna pray. We're gonna pray together, and I want y'all to pray with me. I want y'all to pray for our friend, Brother Travis Sharp. Brother Travis is still working on the tiny village. He's getting things up and going. That is a massive project. Him and Brother Scott. Now, Brother Scott, y'all don't know Brother Scott from Scott Campbell, but they're good buddies. Brother Scott's on his board. They went to the homeless mission. And if you haven't been to Fenwick Street in Augusta, you need to put in Fenwick Street in Augusta. And the homeless mission is starting to look like a resort, which is one of their goals. They want people who come out of the slums, sleeping off a bench, to walk into a place where they see value, where they see people of value. They have a beautiful landscape, and I think maybe Brother Adam and his group had something to do with them finding some plans. I know Brother Pat worked with you on finding out what to do there. The landscaping looks good. They got new lighting. They got new parking. They got a huge permanent tent where people can hang out. They do tent revivals there. They give out needs there. And Brother Travis and Brother Scott went there, and they're painters. You might not know it, but Brother Scott was a professional painter, and he's a church planter. And Brother Travis is a professional painter by anointing. But they painted that whole outside of that building. Building's got new windows. It's got an iron fence to go around it, black iron fence with a security spot right there to go along with it. It looks amazing, and they're not done. They want to do more because they want people when they come in to feel value. Brother Travis said that won't change everything overnight, but to know that they're valued, it's not like here's a blow-up mattress, sleep on the floor, that people have actually put money in that they can have a place to stay. He said that's going to trigger somebody to say, I'm worth something. And Brother Travis and Brother Scott, he said, get with us when you want your church painted on the outside and let us know. And he said, if y'all get to paint together, a couple painters, we'll come stay a week. Now, I don't know if he was on painkillers at the time. He hadn't fallen or anything, but I remember him saying that. So I'm going to take him up on that. The church is going to take him up on that sooner or later. But they did a great job at the Garden City Rescue Mission, and Brother Pat's doing a great job. And you might see some places to give around town. We're setting up little donation boxes for missions, and if you got some change, you can throw some change or $1 in that, and the community can as well. We've already picked up a few bucks for them, but the goal is to get more and more and more until almost every place we can get in the county has one of our boxes for missions there. We want to see people that are downtrodden do well. That's how a community does better, all right? Government isn't God. We're not waiting on somebody to get elected for us to work. We're going to work now. The church has worked through Caesars, emperors, kings, queens, tyrants, the churches that work in China, the churches that work in Africa, the churches that work in South America, the churches that work in Mexico. The church always works because our government isn't our God. We don't wait. We don't want to just be heard. We want to do more than that. We want to be hearers of the word, but we want to be doers also. We're not trying to get our voice out there as much as the name of Christ, but that his name may be lifted up. Okay? Now, with that said, I want you to stay standing. I want you to sing with us. I want you to enjoy having these young people lead us, and I want you to make a joyful noise unto the Lord because it's what we are commanded to do. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so. And that's what we're going to do through song. Father, thank you for Brother Travis. Thank you so much for Brother Pat, Brother Scott. Thank you for the work they're doing together. Brother Scott is a church planner. Lord, he's in a spot where he has a good group, nearly a full church, but he needs them to become givers. We're in a spot, Lord, where we have seats with good givers. And so, Lord, we each have needs. He's got his needs. I've got mine. Lord, I thank you for the work he's put in with Brother Travis, getting the office ready, the official office for the tiny village constructed and put together. And Lord, I look forward to that mission being completed and moving forward. I look forward to what Brother Pat's doing. And Lord, I look forward to our church being involved not only in giving on our own accord, but Lord, when we head into being a church that desires to be philanthropists, that they'll be on the top of our list to help and to support and to make their cause known to others, that their work may continue for not only now, but for a long time to come. May we be the seeds we are to be and grow where we're planted in Jesus' name. And all God's people said, amen and amen. Now y'all sing with us. Let's enjoy the Lord together.
Nothing can compare.
want y'all to clap like there's 100 people in here. Y'all give the Lord a hand clap of praise. He's worthy of it. The kids are getting ready to be dismissed, and we're going to go ahead and let the Fusion group go ahead and be dismissed as well. Anybody and everybody else can join us here in the middle. Brother Adam's going to come. Elijah, will you bring that podium down here? Can you show us your muscles and help us out? The drummer, we're going to use, I think he uses the podium there. The drummer boy is going to show us how he can make it work. I want to share this with you before Brother Adam comes up. On Sunday evening, Sunday morning and Sunday evening, we got a chance to watch while we were away, and Isaiah was downstairs in the cabin, and he had it pulled up on a TV, and Tara and I was upstairs. We were watching on our phone, and one thing I'll say is we don't always get it right, but we had the music right. If you go back and listen to the music, Todd, it was right. I'm just telling you, we don't always get it right. But we did get it right, and the message was really good. I appreciate Brother Todd carrying over from what we talked about before about you become what you worship. It's very simple. What you put your time and effort and energy into idolizing is what you begin to become. And that's just going to happen to everybody from every walk of life. If you worship and love Jesus, that's who you're going to become more like, which is the goal. So that was pretty cool. So we also tuned in Sunday night, which was really fun because I really enjoyed the platform of two teachers. I enjoyed having Brother Scott and Brother Charp here together, and I wasn't the only one, by the way. We keep some stats and things along and along. We had that played back 1,200 times over the last week. So that's pretty interesting stuff to go live on Facebook and to have 1,200 plays for a church like us. For instance, on a Sunday morning, we'll get 200 plays here and there. But for that night, 1,200 individuals clicked and watched for a little while. That's a pretty big thing for us. So what I encourage you to do is whenever you're up here teaching and you look around on a Wednesday night and you say, man, this is what I got. No. There are other people who are, we had, I think, 17 states represented that was watching during Sunday night. Maybe a couple from overseas as well. We'll have to check that out. But what I want you to do, if you do have a smartphone and keep one, you're welcome to share this video, let people know what they're watching, not just as a church service, but we are going to talk about the Bible and money. We want to be clear about what we're teaching. We don't want to be slick about it. We don't want to come off as salesmen. We're not selling anything. We are proclaimers. We proclaim, we herald, we promote truth. We promote biblical values. We promote a biblical worldview. That's not hidden. Jesus is Lord. Jesus is King. Jesus is risen from the dead. And because of that, everything that he says, including about money and finances and what we do with it, matters eternally. So never think that I'm just speaking to the group here. I'm speaking to the group here and the groups that will go back and listen later. And I'm speaking into families that's going to share with others the truth that I'm giving. So if every one of us gives this truth that Brother Adam teaches tonight to 10 people, all of a sudden your audience is a lot bigger than what you're dealing with. You have to understand that God's word is not going to come back void. It's going to work, and it's going to work in mysterious and wonderful ways. So for that, we thank him, and we appreciate Brother Adam having a lesson prepared for us tonight. He's going to come up. He's going to have this microphone I got in my hand, so he's got one ready to go, and y'all are going to follow along with him and get all you can while it's good to get.
Good afternoon. Glad everybody can make it out on Wednesday afternoon to be here with us. We have talked about all kind of things over the last few weeks concerning finance. We've talked about planning. We've talked about spending. We've talked about how to, get in your budget and really dial in on it so you can make cuts and trim where you see fit. We've talked about trying to maximize your income through different avenues. We've talked about, all these things. We've talked about savings and how to invest. So we've covered a lot of information over the last, this is I think week 7, maybe week 7, week 8. I know the preacher had 1 week, so in there. So we've covered a lot of things about finance over the last couple months, and I hope that some of it has stuck with you. I hope you've gotten something from it. I certainly have, as I've done the study, and as we kind of wind things up with it. maybe we can all find something to use in the lessons over the last few weeks to help our financial lives a little bit. Tonight I'm gonna, if we could we're gonna do a little Bible reading to begin with. We'll start there, and then we will talk about how that applies to us in our financial realm. So let's start with Ecclesiastes. Am I saying that right? Yeah, I think so. There you go. Chapter 3 and verse 2. I'm going to read a portion of that. So that's chapter 3, verse 2. The part I'm going to read is it says, it's a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. So at the end of the day, after we've done all these things financially, we're going to die. That's the good news and the bad news, right? It's kind of it's bittersweet, but that's the truth of the matter. And the Bible tells us that there's a time for everything in life, and there will come a time when we will no longer be in this world. We will go on to be in a much better world with a lot less stress, and we won't have to worry about any of these financial things. For now we do, but there's coming a day when we won't. So we want to be prepared for that spiritually, obviously, and also financially when that time comes. Let's look at James chapter 4, verse 14. Come on in here, Weston. A little bit dirty. Look like you've been in the mud tonight, but he made it. That's going to be James chapter 4, verse 14. We're talking tonight about the end of the day, you will die. You will die. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. So we know we're here in the scheme of things, in the scheme of eternity. We are here for a very small amount of time. It says it's a mist. Can you imagine this, the mist, and it's gone? So we know our time is limited, and we know we should use it wisely. We've talked about time management a little bit. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, and that's an important thing to apply in your financial life, because we just don't know. There's so many unknowns in financial life, but there's a huge unknown as will we even be here to know in this realm of what that's going to bring. So we've got to be prepared for that. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 9. Hebrews chapter 9. And we're going to look at verse 27. And as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this is the judgment. So there again, we know the Bible is telling us very plainly we are not going to live here on this planet forever. There's a lot of folks that live to be 90, 95 years old, and there's a lot of folks that do not. So we do not know what tomorrow brings, as James 4 says. And we also have got to know we've got to die one time. Thank goodness only once, right? Let's go to Psalms chapter 39. Psalms chapter 39 and verse number 4. Lord, make me to know mine end and the measure of my days, what it is that I may know how frail I am. We are frail creatures. We know that we're not built to be here forever. We're built to move on. But when we move on, there will be our things will be left over. We will have to settle our accounts here on earth. Each person, no matter how small or how great that is, you've got to settle your accounts. We know our life is frail, according to Psalms. This prayer is, help me know just how frail I am. And I think that's one thing that we all kind of take for granted. We don't think our day is coming, but we know that's coming. We know we need to be prepared for that. And then the last one I'll do before we move on is Psalms, and this may be my favorite one here of these verses, Psalms chapter 90 and verse 12. Psalms chapter 90 and verse 12. So teach us to number our days that we get a heart of wisdom. We need to know that and remind ourselves, and we need sometimes to pray for guidance to remind ourselves that we get in the world and we've got a lot of things going on. We have a lot of responsibilities, but at the end of the day, our days are numbered, right? We don't know what that is, but God does, and we need to understand that, and we need to prepare for that. But we also need to, I think this verse is also, to me, it's saying maybe enjoy the time you got here, because you don't know, tomorrow's not promised. We've all heard that. So, be content the best you can, and don't get so stressed out about financial things that you can't enjoy the time you're here, because by reading these handful of verses, we know it's limited. We don't know our days, but we know our time is short. So I'm saying all that just to help us in our minds, and it's a somber lesson, but to help us in our mind realize the gravity of the situation and preparing ourselves financially for the end, because there is an expiration date. And just because we go does not mean everybody else around us will go. We're going to leave family and friends behind, and we need to make sure that we owe them. It's our responsibility to make sure we have planned accordingly, not to leave them in a bad spot, financially speaking, not leave them in a bad spot. It's our responsibility. We'll talk more about what those responsibilities are in the next few minutes, and how we can take care of those things. The next thing, when I was preparing this lesson, I said, we all have legacies left. When we're gone, we all have a legacy. What we've accomplished, what we've not accomplished, the things we've done great, the things we've done terrible. That's the legacy left back here on earth. So even though you're gone, this little section here, I'm going to title it, He Being Dead Yet Speaketh. Even though you're gone, your actions while the time you were here will be remembered in a positive or negative way, and it's up to us to define that in the time we have. If we go to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4, I might get you to read this, Scott, if you don't mind, when you get there, Mr. Scott. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4, and then we'll talk about that real quick. Though he is dead, he still speaks. So God appreciated the offering, right? And he accepted that. And through his faith, though he died, he still spoke. So thousands of years ago, Abel was gone. But we're still talking about Abel. This was in the New Testament, so thousands of years had passed. Then Paul writes this, right? And so then 2 more thousand years have passed, and Abel's faithfulness and his righteousness still exist after all those years. I think that's one way God can tell us that even after we're gone, our legacy remains. In a positive, in Abel's case, or a negative, in Cain's case. Those memories will be here for others. So although his faith must have been indeed very powerful, so that God, by means of his Spirit, inspired Paul to write about it and recorded it for us to read today. And so I think we should be imitating that process. and we can learn that the influence of a man never ceases through all of eternities that are to come. Personality never dies. Influence never perishes. A body dies, dust to dust, ashes to ashes, earth to earth. The house of clay is buried away, but the soul of a man, the spark, the fire, the flame in his heart, it never dies. Every soul is made in the image of God, and we have an influence that will follow our being from generation to generation if we have done things correctly. And then you also, you can talk about King David in the Bible, where a lot of his history brings negative connotations, in the rape and the murder and things that happened during his time thousands of years ago. Those things have followed him, even though he repented and he got right, as we would say, right? He got right, but those things followed him also. So just as the good will follow you, and that's awesome to have that legacy, the bad will also follow you and can have negative connotations forever. So just a thought there that you will speak from the grave through the things that you have accomplished on earth while the time you're here. So financially, we should talk about, what do I do about this whole legacy thing here? You've told us that you've been pretty plain. We're going to die. We know that. The Bible's very clear about that. It's clear that we don't know when. That's an unknown, and as humans, it's hard to deal with those unknowns because we all like to be in control, and we all like to feel like we're in control. But the fact of the matter is, we have zero control of many things, especially death. So what should you do about that? Financially speaking, what you should do is have life insurance for your family. Now, you may say that's a simple thing, or you may say, I've never done that, or I've already done that. But what an important thing to do to take out life insurance. You're paying for something you will never get the benefit of. It's not about you at that point, right? When you make a purchase for life insurance, you're not going to get that money most of the time. It's going to your heirs. If you've got a husband or wife, and you're the breadwinner, what happens if you die in a sudden tragic situation? What happens? How does ends get met? How does bills get paid? It's already the shock of losing that person, but then losing that person and not having the money to carry on is something that will live with that family for years. It could be life-changing, legacy-changing, right, for that group. So I feel like financially life insurance is super important to invest in. There's many different ways to do that. We're going to just break that down into 3 simple ways. I know that Brother Scott knows a good bit about this too, so we may ask him a question or two. Things I'm not aware of or don't know, we can certainly do that too. So to me, there's basically 3 types of life insurance. You've got whole life, which means you pay a premium, a set premium for your whole life. There's some advantages to that. You don't get older and your life insurance moves up, right? If you buy young, it's going to be cheap. You lock in a certain rate, and you just plan to pay that for the rest of your life, whether that's 6 months or 60 years. By doing that, you have ensured that in the event of your death, your family has finances to take care of things. So how much life insurance do I need? Dave Ramsey recommends about 10 years worth of your salary, 10 times your salary. If you make $100,000 a year, then you need to have $1 million in life insurance. That's what Dave Ramsey said, and he's the financial guru on these things. So I would say it's probably a pretty good number. That may be out of your realm. You may say, "Oh, I can't afford that much." Maybe you can do something though. These are not expensive things. This is something that you can dig around your couch coins. We talked about the virtual couch coins where we dig around and try to find some savings. You can dig around in other areas of waste in your financial life and apply it to something that will matter. It could matter for your heirs for 100, 200 years. You don't know how long it will affect a family to go from having income to having zero income, and what that does to the children, you don't know what it does for generations to come. You also don't know what it does if you pass away and you do leave $1 million and your kids are able to get a super great college education. They're able to maybe get older and invest that money in a business they want to start. Your husband or wife may be able to use that money to pay off any debts that you do have, to create some nest eggs. You don't know what that money being there, you don't know how that's going to affect the future. It could turn into your family being philanthropists, where they're able to have money to give away. Or it could end up where your family ends up in the homeless shelter. It can go either way with these things. Very important. Whole life insurance, same price every month, your entire life. It's boring, I guess, but it's there. You've got term life insurance. This is what a lot of financial guys will recommend. Term life insurance is a very low premium with a fixed amount of time attached to it. I think when I bought term life insurance the first time, I was probably, 22, 23 years old. I wasn't very old at all, but my dad was a former insurance sales guy. So we all knew growing up the importance. I mean, it was, we were around it, and he believed in it. It wasn't something that he just, he sold to sell it. He believed in it. And as soon as we were all able to know what it meant, he was instructing us and telling us the value. And then, it was up to you. You were grown at that point. But he was good about teaching us those things. And with term life insurance, when I purchased that young, I may have paid $20 a month. And it's probably like a $100,000 policy. It's like a 30-year plan, right? So I bought it at 20, 50 years old. It goes away. It disappears. It's gone. But in that 30-year time, if I were to pass, then it's $100,000 there to cover any of the expenses I may have had at that particular time. So that's very inexpensive insurance. It's a great way to have insurance if you need it. It makes it more affordable. But you've got to be watching the length of time that the term is for. I would go far out as you can. You want to lock in those 30-year terms, I think, especially if you're young. You get into the middle of your life, your 30s, your 40s, price jumps up. You lock it in for 30 years, then you're covered till you're 70 maybe. But regardless of which style you choose something. Nothing is not an option. Especially once you have a family, then nothing is not a responsible option. Let's put it that way. Nothing is not a responsible option. The last one that I'll talk about is a 20 pay. And 20 pay life insurance is, you've got some people that think it's of the devil. It's horrible. And then you've got some people that say, man, buy a 20 pay policy and you're going to be rich in 20 years. So I fall in the middle on this. My thought, I have two 20 pay policies myself. I bought them both young. They were both fairly inexpensive. In 20 years, I have bought my policy. It is mine, free and clear. I do not pay another dime on it after 20 years. The death payout is fixed, plus it's going to have earnings. So if I have bought a 20 pay policy, and it's $250,000 payout, let's just say, it's probably going to cost $2,500 a year. You're going to pay that for 20 years. Simple math, $50,000 you've paid in, right? 20 times 2,500. So you put in $50,000 over a 20-year period of time, and it has a $250,000 value. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist, but my family will have gained a $200,000 plus, right? It's a net profit. That's a lot of money, and I have to do nothing. There's nothing for me to worry about investment-wise. It's there. Another good thing about the 20 pay that I like, that a lot of people, a lot of guys that say, term only or that kind of thing. I like 20 pays because it's mine. I've purchased it. And I also like it because it makes money. It doesn't make a lot, but as it grows, it's going to compound interest. So that 250 that you signed up for, at some point may be worth 280, 290, $300,000 because you are investing money into it, and there again, it's hands off, but it's making money within the policy. So over the time you're investing or you're paying your life insurance money, it's a way for cash to accumulate. Another thing I like about 20 pay, let's say I get to be 70 years old, I'm financially secure, I don't need the life insurance anymore. I've got money in the bank for all my family, but I want to travel. I think, you know what? I want to travel. I don't want to take it out of my other monies. I can cash this policy in. It's mine. It'll be a cash value attached to it. Could be $100,000, $200,000, depending on the rates of return during that 20-year time frame. But it will have a value to it that you can cash out, and you put it in your pocket. That's pretty cool, right? So there's different options of life insurance. The bottom line is you've got the lowest cost is term, and that's good. There's nothing wrong with term insurance at all, as long as you understand what you're getting. You're getting a certain amount of coverage, money-wise, for a certain length of time. Whole life, same payment, your entire life. 20 pay, it's life insurance plus. Wouldn't you say, Scott? It's like life insurance on steroids almost. It costs a lot more. It's a lot more expensive than term, okay? So there's no getting around that. So you've got to look at that for yourself and your family and decide what's good for you individually. I would definitely find a person you trust to sell you a policy. I would maybe meet with 2 or 3 reps, find out who your family and friends use, get recommendations, and I would shop it just like I would do anything else. I would find out what's available and what the cost is. So it's no shortcuts in anything financially if you want to do it right. You've still got to go through the process. But it's important because, like we said, young kids, who's going to take care of them? She said, well, my wife will take care of them. She still works. Cool. Who's paying for daycare? If you've got 3 or 4 kids, 3 kids is what, $600, $700 a month, $800 a month for daycare? Who's going to pay for that? How can the wife pay all the other obligations and pay for daycare and save for college and make sure the kids can play sports if they want to? Can that really be done on one income? I don't know. I'd play on the safe side and say probably not. I'm going to make sure that there's money there that will take care of that. Scott, you got anything you want to add to that? I know anything you'd like to say. I like that. And so that's the things you need to hear, that when either side makes an argument, hey, you should do this or you should do that, you should be able to sit back and look at that thing. I have one term, and I'll be honest with you, it's going to run out when I'm 52, 55. I bought it young. It's going to be gone. And I really hope I outlive that thing. I hope I outlived that thing. I ain't planning on using that one. But the other ones I have are 20 pays. And so, when I get to be just a few years, those will be paid off. So I will go into my 50s with life insurance fully purchased. And at that point, the money will make money. I can continue to add to it, which is going to really stack the value. Or I can forget about it. I've paid it off. I've paid my 20 years. I'm done. So depending on where you are in life financially, you've got to pick what's best for you. The main thing is pick something. Like we said, picking nothing is not a reasonable decision for a family man or a family lady to do. It's not a good idea. I think the best thing about life insurance, it's tax-free. If you leave your family $1 million in life insurance Uncle Sam don't get a penny of it. Isn't that wonderful? If in a lot of other situations, Uncle Sam will get his part. Life insurance is nothing. You get the full payout, whatever that is, 100,000, 50,000. It's no tax on it. So I like that. I like that the money is, free and clear. Here you go, no strings attached. Don't you like it when things have no strings attached? So no matter what version of life insurance you get, there's no strings attached on the payout. And my dad used to say, if you get in a car wreck, the adjuster can argue about how much damage was done to your car, and you got to negotiate. If your house get hit by a storm, there's negotiations. Almost health insurance, there's negotiations. Did you meet your deductible? Life insurance, you're dead, the check's written, it's over. They can't argue whether you're dead or not. It's a quick payout, but we've experienced it, unfortunately, but it's like we said, we're all going to die, no doubt about it. We've experienced it as a family, and it pays fast. You do your paperwork, you send it in. It's not 20 questions. There's a check in the mail or an auto or a wire into your account, and they're done. It's over. So there's my life insurance bill. Very important to have that if you're going to leave a financial legacy, to have something in place to protect your family. So we talked about this a little bit last week, and this is just a simple question. Should I leave a financial inheritance to my children? It's a question. Should I do that? You hear some people say, I got mine, he can get his. I mean, we've all heard that. I know I've heard it a bunch of times. He can get his. We've heard other people say the opposite end of the spectrum. I don't want my kids to want for anything. So the question is, should I leave a financial inheritance for my children? Proverbs 13:22 says, 13 verse 22, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. Okay, so that means the children and the grandchildren. A good person does. That's what Proverbs says. So I would kind of lean toward that side. Sometimes you can set up different avenues so that maybe an 18-year-old doesn't end up with more money than they know what to do with. Maybe it goes into a trust fund, something you can discuss with your attorney. But having a clear path, if you're worried about your child, if you're worried about the maturity of the child, if you're a parent, I mean, sometimes we don't want to say it out loud, but we know. Can that child handle that money? At 18, I could. I mean, the people around me know I could. I handled it very well. I could handle small amounts of money. I could handle large amounts of money. I have met many 18-year-olds that I wouldn't give $5 to. They wouldn't make it, 10 minutes down the street with it in their pocket. So as a parent what you should do as far as how that money should be managed. That's more the question, because the answer is a good person leaves an inheritance. We know that part. Your job as a parent and the adult is to figure out how that money is distributed, at what age, at what amounts. That's your job. That's the way I see it. There's certainly nothing wrong with leaving money to charitable organizations, your church, right? There's certainly nothing wrong with doing that. A good person leaves an inheritance. Nothing wrong with that for that. So good avenue to discuss is, you've done well for yourself. Maybe you take out a life insurance policy and make the church the beneficiary, right? Nothing wrong with that. You can make a small contribution each month to your life insurance policy. When you die, make sure the elders of the church know, here's a copy of the policy. When I die, mail this bad boy in, and the church is going to get $25,000. Nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing to do. So we can do things like that. As we talk about inheritance, you've got to tell it what to do. We've talked about this in the class early on. It's your job to tell your money and your things what to do, not the other way around. The only way you can do that when you're dead is to leave a will. That's the only way. Otherwise, you don't have any control. Now, you're gone. You don't care. You're in one or two places. It's not going to matter to you if you've got that taken care of. But as a responsible adult, it is your job to make clear what your wishes are with your finances. So the first question is, what is a will? A last will and testament is a legal document that outlines a person's assets, how a person's assets should be distributed after their death. It also names someone to manage the property, an executive of the estate. So if your job is to know what you've got, your IRA, your retirement monies, your stocks, your CDs, your savings, your checking account, your real estate, it's your job to know what you have and then to be clear about how that's distributed at your death. Now there again, you may say, I'm 30, I'm 40, I got a long time to go. There's been a whole lot of 30 and 40-year-olds that didn't have that opportunity to wait until they were 70 to write their will. We do not know the time. The Bible is clear on that. We do not know when our time is to go. But what we do know is we can be prepared for that by leaving a will. You will prevent infighting in your family. How bad would it be for you to pass, for you to leave assets, and then for the next 3 to 5 years your family fight over it? Wouldn't that be terrible? You're better off not leaving anything than to do that. Be clear. As a husband and wife, be clear about these things so that there are no issues of what goes where, who gets the stocks, well, who gets this, who gets that. Well, I want that. That's not what the will says. Let me tell you, whatever that will says is what's going to happen. That's what the judge and the attorney, that's it. What's in that will be enforced. And that's good. That's how it's built. You got to name a guardian for your kids. If you have children, where do they go? If you don't specify that, then you've got Mamaw and Auntie and everybody figuring out, fighting over who gets little Johnny. That's not a real great way to do things. So we're responsible. It's our job to name that guardian, have that conversation with that guardian. Hey, this is a big deal. If I pass, will you take care of my kids? I'm going to put you in my will. It's a serious conversation. It's not something to take lightly. A guardian must be named. An executive of the state must be chosen. If I die, who's going to make sure these things are carried out as I've asked them to be carried out? Somebody has to do that. Your attorney and the judge is only going to take it so far. Someone's got to do the legwork. Needs to be somebody trustworthy. Someone who's not going to take advantage of the situation. Someone that's going to do what you've laid out in your will without being fuzzy about it. Write the will clearly. Have your attorney write the will clearly, and then pick someone who's going to help execute those wishes in a responsible manner, an honest manner. So those are the kind of things that are going to be in there. Well, that gets into the weeds a little bit. I think for most people, a will is fine. It just talks about those things. A trust is when financial situations are a little more complex. Sometimes it's good to have a trust. If you've got a business, then you get into who's going to manage that at your passing. So that's when sometimes a trust is named so that you can specify if me and my wife were to pass and I've got this business, I want my best friend to manage this, and these are my instructions for him. Those are kind of things that would be in a trust. Sometimes real estate's in a trust, so that gets a little more complex. The main thing is you need to direct your money where to go, and if you've got those type assets, that's when you don't want to go in on your own. That's when you hire a professional. If you've got the money to hire a professional, if you've got those kind of assets, then you should invest a couple $1,000s and do that, right? Then that person, as a estate planner, is going to guide you. If I'm assuming he's a reputable person, or she is, they're going to say, with your circumstances, a simple will's best. With your circumstances, you're going to need a trust, and we're going to need to be a little more detailed. So everyone's different. The main thing is to get the process. If you don't have one, get it started. Get moving on it, because we don't know what tomorrow brings. We really do not know. So that's what you've got to do as you know your life's coming to an end, you've got to be prepared for it. You've got to tell your stuff where to go. All right. Um, I think overall, one of my main thoughts out of this class is God wants you to be prosperous. He wants you to be prosperous, and He wants you to manage your assets wisely. I think we've read where He doesn't want you to be lazy. He wants you to be productive. These are all things that's coming directly out of the Bible that we can say that, this is the way it should be. Job 36:11, if they obey and serve Him, they will spend the rest of their days in prosperity and their years in contentment. If they obey. There's the key. We like to kind of skip that sometimes. But if they obey and serve Him, they will spend the rest of their days in prosperity and their years in contentment. So I think that's a good theme to kind of wind things up on, is that we've listened to different lessons about finances over the last few weeks. I think generally, if these themes and ideas are applied, you will have positive results. There is no 100% guarantee on anything in this life, and that's obviously for finances too. Things can come up that you cannot see, blind spots that will catch you off guard, that can certainly throw you off kilter, and you may not get the results that you maybe expected. But the idea is, if you follow the plan, more times than not, it will succeed. Any questions, comments about tonight's lesson or anything we've talked about? I'll be glad to take a few if you got anything. A lot of information, if you took notes, to go back and read over, study over. The lives are up, I suppose, so if you missed a class, you can certainly go back in and watch. Maybe spend a little time doing that. Maybe a good idea. I think finances are a lot like everything else. You usually get back what you put in. If you kind of lackluster and you don't really put a lot of focus on it, you're probably not going to get the best results. If it's something that's important to you, that you're able to do well for you, your family, you're able to give money away. If you want to leave your kids and grandkids inheritance, if those things are important to you, then there's a process just like there's anything else. Scott, you got anything? Yeah. Exactly. Right. I think what you said was very important, is that, let's say you've lived a life that you've done a lot of these things and you have accumulated some wealth. You're not super rich, you're not Bill Gates, but you're not homeless either. You've done well for yourself. And then you end up with dementia, or you end up with a 10-year stay at a nursing home. The nursing home, by law, is going to take about $10,000 a month, maybe more as we get older. That's today's money. You got to think, if you do live 30, 40 more years, $10,000 a month, they're going to pull from whatever money you have. They don't care where it's at. They really don't. Savings, your house. If you got a house, they'll help you sell your house to turn it into cash so you can pay them more money. But if that money that may be the only place that you can tuck it away, where there's a wall that can protect you, is with a whole life or 20-pay plan, where that's it. They can take everything else, but there's a wall that they cannot cross, that you can still leave for your family if, God forbid, it all got taken away because of health concerns. That's a great point, Scott. I like that. Anything else? Weston, you good? You ain't got no questions? Okay. You happy? Todd. So I'm actually looking at that for my family this year. It's been something I've researched during the summer, and like you said, you can only do that in open enrollment, which I think for most of us is like now till January if you're on different public plans, which is about all we have now. I like that thought, but typically with a health savings account, you have to have a very high deductible. That's the key. So you may have to have a $10,000 deductible in order to qualify for a health savings account if you're trying to get it tax free. So there's a number of things that's complicated, and I think there's many different avenues. The avenue I looked at, because I'm self-employed, I have nobody to deal with this for me, is if I do high deductible plan, I can pay that, right? I can put money in a health savings account tax free, up to like $8,000 plus or minus, depending on. But I think the number I came up was like $8,000. So I can put that money up $8,000. If I'm taxed at a 30% rate, I just saved $3,000, rough numbers. So it really only cost me. It does. It carries. So it really only cost me $5,000 to put up $8,000, right? So that, and from a tax standpoint, the thing is with a health savings account is you've got to realize that first $10,000 is on you, or $12,000. It's on you. So you got to be prepared for that financially, in my opinion, to absorb a $10,000 emergency hospital bill, so that you don't end up with what now? I've got a health savings account. I've contributed 3 months to it. I've got a grand total of $300, $100 a month, and I've got a $10,000 health bill looking at me. So in my case, I can absorb that, but somebody else may say, man, how am I going to pull that off? So I think they're good in the circumstances. Yes. Yeah.
If you're in my tax bracket, my income bracket, I would not do it. We did away with it after 5 years of doing it. High deductible, yada yada. It just wasn't beneficial to us. Didn't offer us any tax breaks from the tax burdens. Matter of fact, one line item messed up with our tax accountant, and they put like 40,000 on a line item. It was an error, but just to show you that if you put more in it than what you're supposed to, that tax is massive. It is you get if they allot you 8 or 12 and you go above that, you get whacked. I mean, it's a hard hit, like almost drawing out of early retirement. It's at the 30 to 40% hit. So not that we had to pay that, but because they got a line item wrong, we realized how big of a hit it was. And for us, it wasn't in our tax bracket. It didn't help out. So we just dropped it and saved the money and pay as we go.
I think it's different for everybody. For me, if I could go ahead and put $10,000 up, and bam, it's there, and then I can also stack that tax-free money into that account. After a year or two, I got the money put up. Now it's tax-free. Right. It's that time when that's what I was saying, that window there of you accumulating enough money to cover that deductible, that's the scary time. If you don't have that money, then I'd be scared of it a little bit. But from my perspective, it could be something. And then you can pay everything out of that HSA. I mean, you're going to pay your doctor visit. You go to CVS, and pretty much anything that's related to your health. So you've got to dig in that thing and figure out what's best for you. But I think it certainly has benefits in certain situations, because insurance is, at my house, for our family, that is our biggest monthly expense, period.
Yeah, it's good. And I'll tell you, and I
That's the one expense out of our household, more than groceries, more than a mortgage, more than car payments.
and with a wife that works in the insurance industry, it's going to get a lot worse. One of the worst things was to do the mandate. That was terrible, and to take it away was worse, because it's a gap now. There's a massive gap, and they're monopolizing. Right now. They're trying to figure out how not to monopolize it, but there's laws passed that pretty much allow pharmacies to monopolize, which insurance companies own pharmacies, by the way. So that's a whole different ballgame. I'll tell you what we need to do is build a stewardship wall somewhere and have a bunch of different pamphlets and brochures offered because it's much needed. Making money is discipline. At the end of the day, go to work, save your money, and then start figuring all this out. It'd be great to have, like, to close this thing out in a couple weeks if we could figure out how to get some real questions for, like, you, Will Alexander, and Blake Alston all together, and have a closing panel for insurance, will and testaments. I don't know if Will handles that, but he's in the legal, and I don't know if he can do legal advice, but he can definitely give advice, and I'm sure he's smart on that. Blake's great at life insurance. I don't do 20s, but I have a lot of term policies laying around. A lot of them. I didn't realize every time he says it's time to up one that I have one. So I got like 10 or 12 of them just laying around, and that's a lot of money if I was to drop dead now. But I'm like Adam. I hope I'd rather just outlive them. But we live by we try to go by the 10-year principle. If one of us do pass, we try to make sure that there's enough money that the other person's income is covered for 10 years. That would get all of my kids raised out the house. So just a principle to go by. Adam's given us great information. We had around 175 plays or views during the broadcast. The more we can get that out there, the better. What we do here is very important. What's said, what's taught is very unique. What he's teaching, you don't get in churches everywhere. That's not something usually taught. Set aside time to teach. Appreciate you taking the opportunity and taking the opportunity to get it while it's here. This is free advice. This don't cost you anything. These lessons we teach that we put together, from Todd to Scott to myself to Char, you name it, Brother Steve, everybody who puts together biblical lessons and spends a lot of time on it to give information out, that's free. That's free schooling, by the way. That what you got here was free schooling and free advice. And there was no catch at the end. He wasn't selling any policies. He wasn't like, meet me at the back door and I can sign you up, and he's not trying to get 10%. He's simply giving you what's free, and that's what we want to do here as well. I'll give you this last thing because it's something we're going to be thinking about as a church over the next year and going forward, is what to do with several ideas. In 1859, St. Paul's was given his first gift, his first philanthropy gift. It was $10,000. Now, you can go do your own research of what that's worth today, but it was a $10,000 gift that was designated to be kept in perpetuity for students to have scholarships. That was in 1859. That man's money is still giving scholarships out today. That's a big legacy. And you've never been to St. Paul's, I'll tell you this, it's $1 billion endowment school. That means they got everything and anything you wanted, and it began with a handful of students and a handful of visionaries and one crazy rector that worked himself pretty much to death. He died at the school. He worked 40 years at the all-boys school at the time and made a massive impact on the community, and has made a massive impact around the world. Some of our senators, governors, highest military people, inventors come from that school. That man left $10,000, and all that was birthed from it. Just giving you an idea of what your money can do if you think about endowments, leaving it to a charitable organization. So I'll leave my kids an inheritance, enough for them to get by on, but the real inheritance I want them to have is something that others can really pull from, that brings the community up to the very top, as high as we can get it to. So that's something we'll talk about in the future. Thank you for staying. God bless you. Pray on your way out. God will bless you on that too. And get your kids. They're outside having fun. They're screaming. They're running around. They're doing what kids do and they ought to do. So thank you for tuning in. Adam, thank you for teaching us. And we will see y'all come Saturday.